So we're starting off this second portion of the morning with an organization that's near and dear to me, Emissions Reduction Alberta. We have supported over 230 greenhouse gas reducing projects to date, with $821 million in funding committed through competitive calls for proposals. Our investments are helping reforest dangerous and difficult to reach areas by drones, transition Alberta's buses, trains, and trucks to hydrogen, capture and store carbon at facilities across the province, and produce renewable energy and high-quality fertilizer from food waste. Mark Summers is our Chief Innovation Officer at ERA and will be sharing more about our organization. In October, Mark and I were in Lyon, France, with our colleague Michelle Gurney to announce that Calgary will be the host city and ERA the co-host of GHGT 17 in 2024. This is an international conference focused on greenhouse gas mitigation technologies, specifically carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So stay tuned as more details come out about that in the coming months. And with that, I will hand it over to Mark.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Isabella, and thanks everybody for coming back from the coffee break. I'm really excited to be standing in front of you here to talk a little bit about ERA. As Isabella mentioned, my name is Mark Summers. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for Emissions Reduction Alberta. Now, unlike Zoe and Brian in particular, who have a very clever sense of humor, around the office I'm known for my lame sense of humor. One of my colleagues this morning described me as an 80-year-old man in a 40-something body with the behavior of a 15-year-old. And as such, I usually like to start my presentations with a joke. But I was watching a YouTube video last week from an MIT professor who unequivocally stated that you should not start your presentations with a joke. Instead, you should start your presentations with a promise to the audience. So here's my promise to you, that over the next 30 minutes, each and every one of you in the audience will learn something new about ERA, whether it's who we are, what we do, how we do it, or what's on the horizon for us as an organization. You will all learn something new. Now, since today's session is being recorded, and I'm scared of legal action, before I move on to the next slide, I want to make sure you've all had the time to read and agree to the following disclaimer about this promise. All right, those of you who know me know I can talk about ERA for hours. Of course, we have time constraints. We have a lot of presentations to get through today. So what I wanted to do is narrow down to what I think are the 5 most important messages or most important topics that I can share with you today to help you as innovators and entrepreneurs maximize your clean tech funding potential. So the first one is a little bit about who we are, and then as Brian talked about also, who we are, what we do, and how we do it. But then before I close off, I want to provide a little bit of advice for anyone who's out there who's interested in applying for funding from ERA. And finally, I want to close with a little bit of a teaser of what you can expect from ERA in the coming weeks and the coming months. Now, as I go through my presentation, some of these topics may be of more relevance or maybe of more interest to you. So as I go through, I'm going to sort of call back to this slide and let you know when I'm moving on to the next topic, just in case anyone happens to fade out or lose the attention. I'll offer that as sort of a cue or an invitation to tune back in and listen to the next topic, which may be of more interest to you. So first of all, I'll start with a little bit about ERA, who we are. Thankfully, Isabella covered some of the basics about who ERA is. I can skip through these slides fairly quickly. We are a Alberta-based funding organization. We have a mandate from the government of Alberta to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve Alberta's economy through innovative technology solutions. Our vision is that Alberta can continue to be prosperous as the world inevitably transitions to a low carbon and then ultimately a net zero greenhouse gas emissions economy. Our business plan identifies 3 strategic priorities for the organization: accelerating technology, driving commercialization, and maximizing impact. And we receive our revenue primarily through the government of Alberta's carbon pricing system known as the TIER regulation or the TIER fund. Now, a little bit more sort of intimately about who we are. Our team now consists of 18 employees. We're larger than we've ever been before. We have an office in Edmonton and an office in Calgary. We have a brand new CEO that was appointed this year in 2022, Justin Reamer, who you heard from a little bit earlier today. We also have a new executive director, Tom, who's in the audience as well, based in our Calgary office. We are very fortunate to be led and guided by an accomplished and powerful board of directors that have lifetimes of experience in Alberta's industrial sector, as well as in the area of clean tech innovation and company growth. We have a very strong network of partners and service providers, including, of course, we've heard a lot about the close partnership between ERA and Alberta Innovates. We talked about resource sharing between ERA and Alberta Innovates, and the folks from, as Brian talked about, the folks from Alberta Innovates serve as the core of our technical expertise for when we're evaluating projects and for the projects that we manage. We also have a very close relationship with the Government of Alberta. And finally, the last thing I want to mention on this is that we are cheerleaders for innovators. We love what we do. We love innovation. We're proud of the work that we support with the innovation community, and we're always happy to share your story. So going back to this, the next item I wanted to talk about is our role in the ecosystem, and that is what we do. Sort of starting painting the picture of us amongst all of the other funders that we're sharing the stage with. So Isabella already shared earlier a wonderful slide about the innovation ecosystem and a large set of the funders that are on the stage or sharing the stage with us today and where we all fit in terms of the technology development spectrum. I've narrowed this down between ourselves and Alberta Innovates for a reason that I'll mention in a minute, and to say that much like Brian talked about with Alberta Innovates, we are a project funder. We fund capital P projects that have a start date and an end date with well-defined objectives, milestones, deliverables that take technology essentially from point A to point B on the technology development spectrum. Now, we recognize this process from TRL 1 to 9 is not linear, but nevertheless, our focus is on the latter end of this cycle when technology has been proven in concept, prototype has been built, perhaps a bench unit has been built, and now it needs to be scaled up, put into the field, into a real world operational environment for field testing, field pilots, commercial demonstrations, or commercial implementation, and in the case of our ESB program, technology adoption into the marketplace. Now, the reason I highlight Alberta Innovates in particular on here is that we have an extremely powerful partnership with our friends at Alberta Innovates. Beyond the resource sharing and strategic visioning that we share together, as partners in Alberta's innovation system, we have a really powerful set of funding programs that can help carry ideas all the way from just about the ideation stage, from applied research and development at TRL 3 and 4, all the way up to that market adoption and commercialization. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention about who we support is that we are built on the philosophy that good ideas can come from anywhere. Now, this manifests itself in a couple really important ways as it relates to our programs. The first is similar to what Brian talked about, is that we are really agnostic in terms of the type of organizations that we fund. We have worked with municipalities, multinational organizations, small and medium enterprises, not-for-profits, post-secondary institutions, and many others. Now, what we often find is that sometimes partnerships between these organizations, between, for example, small and medium enterprises and large industrial operators, can represent a really powerful combination in terms of the innovation that drives technology and the access to the market that drives the adoption of those technologies. Now, the second way that this manifests itself, this philosophy that good ideas can come from anywhere, is that we are not confined to supporting innovation that comes from Alberta. Now, we love to support homegrown Alberta-based companies, but in addition, we know that in Alberta, we do not have a monopoly on good ideas. So if you're in the audience and you represent, for example, a large industrial operator organization, and you're seeking out technology to demonstrate and trial at your facility in Alberta, you should know that we can support projects or technology that comes from outside of Alberta, but ultimately we want to see the accrual of benefits in terms of greenhouse gas emissions reductions, jobs, GDP economic benefits in the province of Alberta. Now, we have a technology roadmap, a long-term strategic document that serves as a guide for our technology investment portfolio. We just released the 4th edition, the newest edition of this technology roadmap in the summer of this year. There are, I think, still a number of copies available, or some copies available on our table in the back of the room. Thank you, Heather, for holding one up as well. This is the 4th iteration of our document and came with a couple notable changes from the 3rd edition to the 4th edition. The first is that over the last 24 to 36 months, we've seen a large increase in the number of commitments that both corporations, organizations, and jurisdictions have made toward net zero greenhouse gas emissions. So we've increased the emphasis on the discussion around pathway in our roadmap to net zero in the province of Alberta, while at the same time maintaining the importance of demonstrating near-term greenhouse gas emissions reductions, as well as support for our existing economic players in Alberta's economy. And then the other notable change from our technology roadmap is that when previous versions of our technology roadmap, our focus areas were built around Alberta's industrial sector, industries in Alberta. That's the energy industry, the electricity industry, agriculture and forestry industry, manufacturing industries, and others. But what we did in this version is we sort of transposed that and flipped it on its side, and our technology roadmap is now based on 5 technology focus areas, which I'll show on the next slide, and was built around the 6 key principles that are identified on this slide. I won't go through each of these in detail, but ultimately, the key principles for our technology roadmap are that we want to leverage Alberta's great and unique strengths in terms of engineering, scientific, workforce talent, and others. We want to act with the end in mind in terms of long-term objectives, but at the same time, we want to be able to be nimble and responsive to the guideposts that are along the way. We want to take a portfolio approach across technology areas, across Alberta's industrial sector, and across timescales in terms of near-term, medium-term, and long-term investments. And then, of course, we know that technology is part of the solution, but we need a complete solutions approach in order to get these innovations across the finish line and in order to meet the long-term goals. So we work with our partners in the system and help to convene the resources and programs that are necessary in order for innovators and technology to reach success in Alberta. So the 5 focus areas that are outlined in our technology roadmap are shown here, and these are, in no particular order, energy efficiency, which I think we're all quite familiar, fairly self-explanatory, that talks about essentially doing the same things that we're doing with a lower greenhouse gas emissions footprint and lower energy inputs. Future fuels, which is all about the next generation of energy sources and energy carriers that will power the province both industrially, commercially, and residentially. So this includes things like clean electricity, which includes, of course, renewable energy, as well as other clean sources such as small modular nuclear. This includes biofuels, synthetic fuels, as well as what Brian talked about, which is a very hot topic right now, hydrogen as an energy carrier and an energy source for driving the economy. Circular economy, in fact, we're wrapping up a funding competition right now around circular economy, and this is all about opportunities that can move away from the linear model of raw materials to valuable products to waste. If we can start to bend that around to a circle where those materials can be used and reused again, helping to reduce and to avoid the processing of raw materials and the managing of waste, that can have a powerful impact on greenhouse gas emissions as well as the economy. Industrial transformation, which ultimately distinguishes itself from energy efficiency in that this represents those transformative step change opportunities for greenhouse gas emissions reductions and economic improvement. This is across Alberta's industrial sector. We have a challenge out right now, which I'll talk about in a couple slides, and we're really excited about this area. And finally, carbon sequestration, which involves both, of course, those engineered solutions to capture carbon dioxide from flue gas streams, as well as from the atmosphere. But it goes beyond the engineered solutions to include biological solutions, enhancing natural carbon sinks, and pursuing nature-based solutions. So these are the 5 focus areas. If you want to dive deeper on any of them, we'll be around today. We're happy to talk about it, and you're also welcome to take a look at both either the digital copy or the physical copy of our technology roadmap. Okay, so going back to the agenda, the third item that I wanted to talk about is how we do what we do in terms of the funding programs that we have available to offer. So ultimately, we have right now 3 major funding programs available that can be divided into the same 2 categories that Perry talked about earlier in terms of technology innovation and technology adoption. So in the technology innovation space, we have 2 funding programs. The first is our funding competitions. Brian talked about this as open competitions, or we call them calls for proposals. I'll talk about those more in a minute. But this is what we have done primarily since 2009, and until around 2018 was really our only funding program and our only way to evaluate projects for funding. We have since launched our partnership intake program. Again, I'll talk about this more. This is our first foray into continuous intake. And then on the technology adoption side, in 2020, we launched our Energy Savings for Business program, which has a couple new streams that have been added since the launch, including the Expanded Technologies Pilot and the Small Producer Energy Efficiency Deployment Program, otherwise known as SPEED. So the first one, calls for proposals. As I mentioned, this is our first and longest standing funding program. We've been doing this since 2009, since ERA was created. These funding competitions are, when we're developed, they're guided by both the needs of the province as well as the needs of the economy and the market. Anytime we launch a funding competition, we always solicit feedback from the marketplace, from the industry, from the innovators to ensure that our calls are aligned with the opportunities in the marketplace. I like to say that one of the worst things we can do as a funding organization is launch a funding competition and have nobody apply, because we haven't taken the time to understand the opportunities and the needs of the market and the innovations that are coming forward from entrepreneurs and companies such as yourselves in the audience. These are open and competitive processes. There's always a detailed program guide available. The criteria and the timelines and the funding available are always described in these guidelines documents. We always host a webinar for applicants to be able to learn more and to be able to ask questions. This uses a 2-stage evaluation process, which is shown here. Last Friday, Kara and I were sitting down and talking about what we want to talk about today. And we thought, boy, oh boy, it would be great if we could sort of take a look behind the curtains about the various stages along this 2-stage process. Who's involved in each of these steps? Who ultimately makes the decisions in each of these steps? And we would love to talk about that. Unfortunately, time doesn't permit during this presentation right now. But nevertheless, we do have a 2-stage process, very similar to other 2-stage processes that you've heard today, where we start with a short expressions of interest document to understand the alignment of the idea with our mandate and with the criteria of the call for proposals. We shortlist those and invite a more detailed, what we call it a full project proposal, from a number of those applicants that we think are best aligned with the call. And then we evaluate those and invite a presentation from all of those who submitted a full project proposal. This 2-stage evaluation process is overseen by a fairness monitor who reports directly to our board of directors to ensure that all applicants are treated on a fair and impartial basis. And then the final notes I wanted to mention on this in terms of dollar amounts, I have an approximate sign here because it varies from competition to competition. But generally speaking, through our open calls, applicants can access anywhere from about $500,000 up to about $10 million per project. And as with all of our funding competitions, we always require one-to-one fund matching to demonstrate what Brian talked about earlier, the market pull for the technologies that we're investing in. So just as a couple examples, these are 3 of the most recent funding competitions that we've launched. The Carbon Capture Kickstart competition, the 11 projects were announced for funding earlier this year. The Circular Economy Challenge, which I mentioned already, is just wrapping up right now. In fact, we will be bringing forward a recommendation for funding next week to our board of directors for funding approval. And then our Shovel Ready Challenge, which was completed last year and was supported by both the Government of Alberta Tier Fund as well as some funding from the Government of Canada's Low Carbon Economy Fund. Thank you, Alana and team. We were happy to announce $176 million towards 16 projects through this challenge. It was very exciting. Now, our current funding challenge, I just want to highlight, this was launched while our CEO was with Minister Sonia Savage at COP27 in Egypt. Was recently launched with up to $50 million of funding available for the focus area that I talked about in terms of industrial transformation. So this is about the step change opportunities for greenhouse gas reductions with technology that can transform Alberta's industrial landscape, geared both toward Alberta's existing industrial operators as well as new industrial opportunities in the province of Alberta. I won't talk more about this because we do have a webinar next week, this week, Friday, December 2nd at 9:30 a.m. It's an hour-long webinar. The first half an hour will be essentially a presentation. We talk about the competition, the criteria, the timelines, and then the second half hour will be open for Q&A from the audience. So if you're interested in this at all, remotely or deeply interested, please feel free to register and tune in. We have effectively no capacity limit. I think there's more than 300 registered right now, but we have lots of room for more if you want to join in and listen or ask questions as well. Okay, so that's our calls for proposals. The second funding program I want to talk about is our partnership intake program. Now, as I said, this is us dipping our toes into the world of continuous intake. What we've heard already this morning from others is that there are a lot of really good reasons why funding organizations use funding competitions, however, on the flip side, we know that innovation does not always happen on our timeline. And as such, if somebody approaches us, let's say the week after the funding deadline that we have for circular economy, industrial transformation, whatever the case is, and it's a really exciting opportunity, we want the ability to be able to look at this. So this is our first foray into continuous intake. It is not an open solicitation, even though it's on an ongoing process, but it works on a referral basis from our network of trusted partners. Now, I'm going to show you on the next slide who our trusted partners are, but spoiler alert, it's really mostly the folks that you're having presentations from today, and even some beyond those that were able to make it out today. The funding available through our partnership program is generally between $500,000 up to $5 million on a per project basis. I do have an asterisk here because this was also graciously funded by the Government of Canada's Low Carbon Economy Fund. And so in some cases where there's a fit with the LCEF program, we can add additional dollars beyond the $5 million on a per project basis with up to another $5 million from the LCEF program. Uses the same two-stage process as the calls for proposals without the open solicitation, of course, and some other interesting nuances. And there is a program guide that's available on our website. I encourage you to check it out if you're interested. Now, here's a list. I won't go through all of them, but here's a list of the trusted partners that we have right now. They represent both local, national and international organizations. They represent a number of the partners that are presenting in front of you today. But the most important message that I want to leave with you on this slide with our Trusted Partnership Program is that if you have an innovation and you're working with another funder in the Albertan or the Canadian ecosystem, whether they're on this slide or not, there could be a potential opportunity for you to leverage funding and to be evaluated by ERA's program as well. So if you are working with someone, whether they're federal, whether they're provincial, and you think that you could be a good fit for ERA as well, don't be afraid to come talk to us, and don't be afraid to come talk to that funding organization to see if there might be an opportunity for a referral to ERA. Okay, the third program that I want to talk to you about is our Energy Savings for Business program. This is really exciting. This was launched in 2020, and this is our first foray into the technology adoption space. So this was launched with money from both the Alberta Tier Fund as well as, again, some dollars from the Low Carbon Economy Fund through the leadership stream that Alana talked about. This provides up to $250,000 on a per project basis with up to $1 million on a per company basis. And this is funding on a technology adoption basis for a number of measures that will help improve energy efficiency. There are about 60 different measures available. You can see them on our website. These cover a number of things, including lighting, HVAC, motors and drives, building envelopes, and a number of others. This is still open to new applications. If you're interested in learning more on a deep dive about the ESB program, I have two colleagues in the audience here today, Brittany and Luca, who are both here and happy to talk about the ESB program, as well as the new streams that have been launched. The Expanded Technologies pilot was launched last year in 2021, and this is essentially a way to go beyond the measures list of the 60 prescribed that are in the ESB program. So this is open to new measures that are not part of that, and it's also open to new applications. And the second stream is our Small Producers Energy Efficiency Deployment, or SPEED program, that was launched earlier this year. It did have a limited intake window, and we're really excited about some of the projects that are going forward in this area. Now, the last thing that I want to mention in terms of how we work is a really important philosophy for us as an organization. Because we offer non-dilutive grant funding, that means that we don't take an equity stake in the companies that we fund. We don't require payback of the funds that we provide, and we don't get ownership of the intellectual property. In exchange for that, every time we fund a project, we want to make sure that there are benefits to the province of Alberta in terms of greenhouse gas reductions, greenhouse gas benefits, economic benefits. And so one of the ways that we ensure those benefits accrue to the province is through the sharing of knowledge and learnings from all the projects that we fund. So every project that we fund, we require both a confidential and a non-confidential final report. The non-confidential version gets posted on our website for public immediately. And in addition to that, we're always looking for opportunities to share the stories and share the message of the projects that we're funding. We're active on social media, primarily LinkedIn and also Twitter, at least for now, until we know what's going to happen with Twitter in the future. We have a wonderful video series. It's available on our YouTube channel. We do short 1 to 2 minute videos about some of the projects that we're funding. We also have a podcast. We now have about 15 episodes where we take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the technologies that we're funding. It's really exciting. And we host in-person and virtual lessons learned workshops where we take some of the innovators that we're supporting and put them in front of an audience of their peers, their colleagues, and in some cases their competitors, to talk about the technologies they've developed and what they've learned through that process. So if anyone here in the audience is working with ERA and you'd love to be highlighted in one of our videos or a podcast or a lessons learned event, please come talk to us. Or similarly, if you're not working with ERA, but there's a technology we are funding that you're interested in learning more about, again, please come and talk to us because we love sharing the stories. All right, almost done. One of the last items I wanted to talk about is I wanted to provide a little bit of advice for anyone in the audience who's interested but maybe not quite sure where to go next in terms of applying for funding from ERA. So I wanted to narrow this down to my top 3 pieces of advice for anyone who's interested in funding from ERA. And the first piece of advice is actually a 5-step guide, but it's a step-by-step guide in terms of learning more about ERA's programs. Now, the reason I did it this way, I have it sequentially from 1 to 5, because if you're anything like me, if there's lots of things to do, sometimes you don't know where to start. And so I wanted to boil it down to an easy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First thing you can do if you're interested in ERA is read the program guide document available on our website. All of our programs have a public-facing program guide, have a lot of information about the programs. If you've done that already, and you're ready to go on to the next step, I encourage you actually to look at the projects that we've funded. This can be really instructive in terms of getting a sense for the scale and the types of things that we invest in. Isabella talked about our portfolio on the technology innovation side of about 230 projects now that we've funded. They're all listed on our website, and you can learn a little bit about what we've funded and also where your technology fits in vis-a-vis our current portfolio. Attend the webinar. I already talked about, we have a webinar for all of our programs on both the innovation and adoption side. And also register, if you've done that, register an account on our intake portal. We have a portal for both our technology innovation, that's our ERIMS or eraadmin.ca, or for our ESB program, they're both listed here. And finally, if you get all through there and you still have some questions, you're always welcome to send your questions to the email addresses that are shown here. Okay, my second piece of advice for you today is that we work very closely with our partners in the ecosystem, our trusted partners, and everyone that's sharing the stage with me today. And I mention this for a couple reasons. One, because we all like to act as conveners of solutions. You may not be a great fit for ERA, but that doesn't mean it's a waste of time for you to talk to us. You may not be a great fit for SDTC, but that doesn't mean it's a waste of time for you to talk to SDTC. We talk to each other and we share ideas. We very proactively have conversations with each other and talk about companies that we're hearing about and that we're talking to. And the second reason I mention this is that it's really important if you're applying for funding to multiple programs that you're telling us the same story, because we talk to each other, and that can raise flags and it can raise questions about the proposals that we're looking at. Finally, the third piece of advice I want to give is that and as a reminder that our mandate revolves around greenhouse gas benefits for the province of Alberta. Our mandate is a little bit narrower than many of the other funding organizations that you're talking to today. It's all about climate change and it's all about greenhouse gas reduction. Now that can come in different forms. It can be direct greenhouse gas reductions, it can be enabled greenhouse gas reductions, it can be low greenhouse gas products for export outside of Alberta, but it's all about greenhouse gas benefits for Alberta. Now I said 3 pieces of advice, but I lied, there's actually a 4th here. The last one is that we love talking to innovators, so come talk to us. Many of the people in ERA are mega nerds like me, and we love hearing about new innovation. Whether it's a fit for ERA or not, we just get really jazzed about clean tech innovation in the province of Alberta and across Canada. So don't be afraid ever to come talk to us. All right, the final thing I want to leave you with is just a little bit of a teaser about what you can expect in the coming weeks and the coming months from ERA. At least those that I have permission to share publicly. So first of all, in terms of future funding, this is outlined in our business plan, but through our technology innovation calls for proposals, we have a number of upcoming calls for proposals that have been identified in our business plan that are shown on the slide here. Industrial transformation, reshaping energy systems, which is all about downstream use and management and optimization of energy. Fuels of the future, which I talked about already, which is about the sources of energy, and hydrogen. And we're very excited to be working in partnership with Alberta Innovates and the Hydrogen Center of Excellence in this area. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that our future funding calls will come out in this order, but I'm also not saying that they won't come out in this order. So that's what I'm allowed to share with you on that. We also have some exciting new opportunities potentially coming through our technology adoption programming, the Energy Savings for Business program. So please stay tuned in that area as well. And then finally, this is my last slide. I just want to say that hearkening back to the principles of our technology roadmap, one of which was reading and responding to the guideposts. We take feedback from innovators very seriously. So we went through a formal stakeholder engagement process earlier this year, and we heard from many folks that have gone through our process, many folks that haven't gone through our process. In addition, our new CEO, Justin, did what he called a CEO listening tour when he first started with the organization to get out there and understand the needs of innovators. And we got some really fantastic feedback. And so we are trying to respond to the needs of the ecosystem and to the needs of innovators. So the first thing that I want to talk about, this isn't finalized yet, but we're talking about some enhancements to our partnership intake program. It's been operating for about 4 years now, and we're very excited about some of the projects we're funding, but we've identified an opportunity to expand it a little bit with maybe some new partners and some new project types. So please stay tuned for some announcements in early 2023 about this. We also heard that while it's very important for us to have a rigorous and defensible due diligence process because we're stewarding public dollars, there are also opportunities for streamlining that process and for working better with our partners, leveraging our partners' information, and reducing the time that it takes to go through our process. So we will be implementing some of these in our current Industrial Transformation Challenge, as well as some more on future funding challenges. And finally, this is really early stage discussions, but since inception, we have only ever offered grant funding toward capital P projects. But we're starting to have some discussions with stakeholders, with innovators to say, are there other opportunities, other gaps in the system that we could help fill? We don't know exactly where this conversation is going to lead, but if you have any thoughts for us, we're open to any feedback around different funding mechanisms that could help meet the needs of the ecosystem. So with that, I want to thank you very much for listening and invite you to come talk to us for the deep dive session in the afternoon. We have a lot of folks from ERA in the room here today, and I will be here for the afternoon, so thank you very much.